How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be sharing a tier list for all of the Stranger Things Season 4 characters. I did this for Stranger Things Season 3, and I'm super excited to do it for Stranger Things Season 4. This is only the characters within Season 4. We have a lot of reoccurring characters, new characters, and so I'm really excited to talk about some of these characters because some of them are the best characters I have seen in the Stranger Things series. So leave your list down below. Who's your favorite character in Stranger Things Season 4 and who's your least favorite one? Because there are some characters that really annoyed me and there's some characters that I absolutely loved. And I'm sure there are a few characters missing. I tried to find an accurate list on tiermaker.com, but there was lists where like characters that just breathed and they had to have them in the list. I didn't want to include everybody. So these are the characters that were a main part of the show or had some significance to it. So we're gonna start with Papa. Papa had a lot of storyline in here, and I think Papa, Dr. Brenner, had some significance towards the end of the show when we dealt with a little bit of Eleven's backstory and how she was affected by Papa. Then we learned about Zero, Henry, Vecna, and his connection to Papa. So I think that there were some storylines kind of towards the end that worked for him. Still hated the character. I think that's the point of his character. I ended up hating him, but I think that there were some decent storylines with him and some emotional moments at the end where he was trying to redeem himself, and 11 really didn't buy into that. I think that scene worked. I think that scene did work for him. So I think he's just going to go here in the B category. Remember, the B category these are good characters. A would be these are great characters. S are amazing characters. C would be okay, and D would be these are bad characters. I absolutely hated them. And there's going to be a few. Here we have like the two cops, the two main sheriffs in town. They're going to kind of go hand in hand. They had one significant scene with the parents, and when they had 11 there and they were trying to kind of sneak off and protect her. There were some funny moments with this character. He was a little more serious, but I think they were by the end of it, I think they were just okay characters. Not that significant within the season, but I was wondering when some cops would eventually show up within the season. So I think they were okay. They weren't great or amazing or anything. They were just kind of there, and they served their purpose for that one scene. Next, we got Jason and some jocks here too. Patrick. Jason, one of the worst characters in the season. When you look at the 80s, and a lot of people were afraid that of the satanic cults, I think his character fit into the 80s and the fear of those satanic cults, and he was just trying to be like a jock that protected his town, and he took it a little too far with Eddie and the end sequence with Lucas, but his death is one to cheer on. And but the character, you just absolutely hated him. He was relentless and mean to a lot of people, even Lucas, as Lucas felt like he was pressured into act like Jason at times. So straight to the D category. Bad character. I hated him. Not a poorly written character, just one of those characters that you just hate because of what he is. Next we have Patrick. Patrick's okay. There were some better storylines for him because he was one of Vecna's victims. And so there were some storylines, some dramatic scenes surrounding this character. If he wasn't one of Vecna's victims, he would go down here to the D category. But I think he was okay. Next, we got some, I see a long string of great characters here. Murray. I love Murray. He had many cheering moments. He had a bulk of the early episodes with Joyce. Just a character that you absolutely loved. He was funny. He was confident. Just worked well with Joyce. And then when we got him with Hopper, it just was more additions to his character, and he's a really great character. And Brett Gelman, he's really funny, and I've seen him in a lot of different things. I'm happy that he's finally getting some recognition. But Murray, love the character, and I love all the sequences within here. Enzo ended up being a character I liked. I think Enzo had some good storylines. At first, he just seemed like kind of like your average guard where Hopper was, but once we learned a little more about his character and that storyline at the end where why are we protecting the Americans, and it's not just for them, it's for if they don't stop this threat, Vecna, then it will eventually come to Russia. And so I like that he realized what was happening. I thought that was a great way to kind of end his storyline. So Enzo, I ended up really liking. I think that they really took this character in the right way, and then he ended up working well with Hopper and eventually Joyce and Murray. So I think he was a good character. Next, we got Yuri, similar to Enzo. He started off rough, and then eventually turned out to be a pretty good character. Not the most amount of storyline for Yuri compared to Enzo. I think I'm going to put him in the C category. But I like that he eventually redeemed himself and saved Hopper and Joyce and Murray and Enzo as well. So it took a little bit for this character to kind of come around, but eventually I ended up liking him. Arglye, fun moments. Didn't really do much other than just be there for some funny scenes within the season. I thought he brought definitely the humor into this season versus some other characters. I think he was the funniest within the season. But in terms of a story or contribution to the overall season, I think it's just kind of lacking. But he wasn't meant to do much other than be high and have some funny moments. So I think he's a pretty good character. I enjoyed his presence within the season. Next, we got Lucas. Lucas was in an odd place in season 4. He felt distant from his friends, and he wanted to be a jock, but he was struggling with his relationship with Max, but had a really large part of episode 9 and his relationship with Max, and he had a great redeeming scene against Jason. I think he ended up being a great character. I think he obviously is one of the core characters to the Stranger Things franchise. He's in that odd place, and I think they handle that character very well. He's in high school. He's kind of transitioning to what he wants to be. Did he want to be a jock? Did he want to be a big basketball star in high school? Or did he want to be with his friends? He was afraid that people would kind of judge him for liking D&D. So I think that they handled that character very well. He was dealing with a lot, and it kind of all came forth towards the end of the season, and they handled that very well. I still really like Lucas. Next, we got Nancy. Nancy has become a really fun character. She just kind of was willing to shoot whatever she wanted to in season 4. There's some funny memes about it. But Nancy, I really ended up liking Nancy. She kind of acted tough for most of the season, and Robin kind of tried to make her open up and develop that friendship. I thought was very sweet. Her and Jonathan were separated for a good majority of the season, unless we're talking about the last episode. So she spent a lot of time with Steve and kind of revisiting those feelings. And I think that Nancy stood up, and she had a chance to shine multiple times, and she worked with Robin to talk with Victor here, which we'll get to eventually. But there were some separate storylines for her, which did work, and she felt like a strong part of that group that was in Hawkins, Indiana. Next up, we got Dustin. Dustin, once again, we have a great character here. He becomes a character that just gravitates towards some of these older characters and befriends them, like Steve in season 2 and season 3, and Eddie Munson in season 4 now. There's just something about Dustin that people like, and he is very loyal. Out of all of the characters, I feel like he is the one that always tries to remain calm and help people out, and is just very lovable. Emotional scenes towards the end of it all with Eddie, but Dustin once again just kind of gravitates towards some of these characters, and they develop some strong relationships, and also kind of develops the character as well. So Dustin, once again, loved the character. Next we got Robin. I loved Robin. She's such a sweet character, and seeing how she's so smitten by Vicky over here, I loved it, and I love how Steve is kind of all in with that relationship too. But Robin, much like Nancy, has a chance to kind of shine, step forth, have some individual storylines, and explores the upside down with Eddie and Steve and Nancy and everybody else, and she holds her own. She's very confident in herself and her relationships, and I love that. She becomes a character that I just love seeing over and over again. I liked her in season 3, and I like her even more here in season 4. Next up, we got Fred. I don't know much about Fred other than a few storylines here and there, but I think he was okay. Just kind of a character that's there. In the beginning of the season, he works with Nancy to kind of investigate what is happening with Chrissy and Eddie's trailer. So not Jonathan here, Eddie. So Fred, just because I don't know much about the character and there wasn't much there for that character, he's just going to go here in the okay category. Next up, we got Miss Kelly. She's kind of like Fred. I don't know much about her, but I do think that when the students came forth and talked with her, even if they were trying to get information out of her, she was very calming. I thought there would be a little more with her. I seen some of these like theories, as she has a clock in her office and everything, that there'd be a little more connection with her and Vecna, but I thought she was a very approachable, calm teacher, and I like that. But other than that, I think she's okay. Next, we got Chrissy here. Chrissy is an okay character. We learn a little more about Chrissy and what she's going through, and Jason is upset, obviously, with what happened with Chrissy and blames Eddie. And Dustin, tells Lucas tells Jason at the end, you don't know what she was dealing with and everything. I think that kind of adds a layer to Chrissy as a character, but she was killed off pretty early, kind of like Barb, and a character that had potential. If they continued her storyline, I'm sure that she would have been a really great character, but she's just okay. She's there, and I like what they did with her, very brief within here. And Vicky, kind of the same thing, very brief character, like her in here, and she has a sweet moment kind of throughout in the early part of the season and the end with Robin, like when they're helping people out. Like I'm sure that if we knew more about Vicky and she was more in the show, she would have been a better character. But since her time was very limited, we're going to put her in the C. So these are characters that they're good, but they're just brief within the show. And that's why they're here in the C. And that's going to go with Victor too. I was really looking forward to Robert Englund in here. And I think that the moments with him were pretty menacing, and his connection to Vecna and his past, I thought worked. Very brief. It was just a guest appearance, but I think it did work. If he was a reoccurring character, we would have him a little more in here. But Robert Englund nailed this role. Next up, we got Mrs. Wheeler, Karen. She's a great mom. She helps out when she can. She cares about her children, and she's got a lot going on with her kids, often running around and going into the upside down and just trying to do whatever they want to do to save the world. I think that would be a little more of an exploration for her. I think she could be a much stronger character if they kind of showed what the parents really go through when they have Dustin and Lucas and Nancy and Robin and Steve and everybody just gone for days at a time. What are the parents doing? They show that briefly, and I think that they handle some of those emotional moments of what their kids are going through. But I want to see a little more of that. So I think she's an okay character. Next, we got Henry. So we have Vecna as the villain over here, but then we have Henry. I think Henry ended up being a really great character. I was curious about him before I knew that he was Vecna, and he seemed very mysterious. Like there was something off about him. And then they kind of added a little more to it. But once we got more of it, I was very interested in it. And they played that mysterious part very well. Jamie Campbell Bower did a great job as Vecna, and Henry as well. I like that mysterious kind of tone to this character, how threatening he did feel, and obviously that conflict between him and 11 worked. And then obviously Vecna, he turns into Vecna, but that's a whole nother conversation that we're going to talk about towards the end. But as number one, I think that this character ended up working and was very pivotal to the story. Next, we got Angela. Man, these two characters here were like Billy. You just hated them. And that was the point of this character. But I loved when 11 smacked her with that roller skate. You just wanted to cheer. It's like, finally someone's shutting up Angela. But she served her purpose. 11 felt distant from everything within the school. She was struggling to kind of get along with people, and she felt out of place. And I think that Jason and Angela served their purpose to kind of that story to kind of move 11 forward. So hated the character. She served her purpose though. Next we got Joyce. Joyce is a great character. She spent a lot of time obviously in Russia trying to protect Hopper and bring him back. I like some of the beginning scenes though in season 4 when she is with 11 and Will and Jonathan. She's been a character that's been so evolved since season 1. Obviously, when Will was missing, she would not give up, and now Will's safe. And she does the same thing with Hopper. And so she goes the end of the road to try to bring back Hopper. And it just shows that determination and her love that she has for her family. And so with that, I think she's a great character. Next up, we got Erica, Lucas's little sister. She has a lot to do at the end of the show. And she's a very tough character. She speaks her mind. She doesn't put up with anybody's crap. She just kind of stands her own. And I love that about her. She's a good character. She has a lot to do at the end as they're kind of helping Max and Lucas with the Upside Down. She's there to kind of protect people and help each other out, but then she runs into Jason and the other jocks as well. But I like her. She's kind of the main character that's been in the background, but does enough to make her an enjoyable character. Eddie Munson. The first character that's going to go in the S category. Stranger Things does this every single season with Barb, with Bob, with Alexi, and now Eddie. They give you a character that you just absolutely love, and then they kill them off. But Eddie, he ended up being a character that was so amazing. He started off kind of average, and I was afraid how they were going to handle this character because I've seen a lot of like Funko Pops and pictures surrounding Eddie, so I knew he was going to be a bulk of the show. Then eventually it just kind of grew on me, and then once we had the town looking for Eddie and he was on the run, and then he was with Dustin and Lucas and Nancy and Robin and everybody, you understood who he is. And that one scene at the end with Dustin and Eddie's uncle, and he said if the world got to know him, they would love him. And that just perfectly sums up Eddie. It's like he seems off-putting at times, but once you got to know him, he's a character that you just absolutely love. That scene with him on top of the trailer playing the music, and then him sacrificing himself, not running away, just made him one of the best characters in Stranger Things. I absolutely loved Eddie, and I love that relationship between him and Dustin, and how they said they love you, and they seemed like the best of friends. It's very emotional, and I love that. Next up, we got Hopper. Hopper goes straight to the S category. He also had some really good storylines with the Demogorgon in Russia, and he just kind of went all in. He knew the threats. He knew what could happen, but he still was willing to kind of sacrifice himself. He came out on top, though. And the end scene with him and 11, it was emotional, it was sad. But Hopper's always been a very strong character. And even when he was in Russia without Joyce and Murray and Enzo, he knew that he could get out. And I love that about Hopper, is that he was so determined, never gave up. One of the best characters. Next we got Jonathan. I wish they would did a little more with Jonathan. For the longest time I felt like they weren't going to do much with him. He did have that one scene towards the end where he said, I miss talking to you, to his younger brother Will, and I love you, and I'm always going to be here for you. And other than that, I think that he's okay in this season. I think that they kind of took I think they did a little less with the character than what they've done before in the past. He's there, obviously, helping out a lot with Mike and Will and Eleven and Arglye there. They have some pretty fun moments in here. But for the most part, in the about half of the season, he kind of just feel like he's there, not really contributing much. So I'm going to put him in the okay category. I still love the character, but in this season, they didn't really do much with him to make him go in the A or S category here. Next up, we got Mike. Going down here to some of the main characters. Mike... I think Mike ended up being a great character. It felt like, too, with kind of like Jonathan, that they did a little less with him. It obviously was focusing a lot on Vecna and Max and 11 here. But Mike, his relationship with 11 felt conflicted at times. Obviously, they're growing up. A lot of things are happening. But him and Will have a discussion to kind of talk about their relationship and Mike's relationship with 11. And so he's kind of in this odd little place, too, kind of like Lucas. They're growing up, and things are a little bit different for them. But I think they handled Mike very well in his love for 11. And he helped out a lot. I just wish they would have done a little more with him, because there are some emotional scenes for Mike and Will and Lucas, kind of that core group, Dustin too. But I ended up liking what they did with Mike. Next up, we got Steve. Steve's a great character. Steve, in the past, I would put up here in the S. They did focus a lot on Eddie. And with that group, that group was so large. We had Eddie and Dustin and Steve and Lucas and Nancy and Robin. So there was a lot going on. And so Steve was kind of fighting for screen time. But I love these two together, Steve and Robin, and how he's like Robin's little cheerleader, and he wants Robin to be in a relationship with Vicky here. And I love that at the end when he's kind of folding everything and he's looking over at them and he's just smiling. That scene made me so happy. But Steve's always going to be a great character. He's very kind. In the beginning of this season 1, he was very different from where he was in season 2, and they just kind of grew this character. But he seemed to do a little less in season 4, and so we're gonna put him in the A category. Next up, we got Will. Will. Too similar to kind of everybody else. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. A little bit in the background, but he's dealing with a lot, and we can tell within the show, and they never really confirmed it and straight out said it, that I think he has feelings for Mike, and that one scene where he's talking about 11's relationship with Mike. He's using 11 as himself without saying it. He shows him that picture, and he looks out the window and starts crying. That was very emotional. Kind of just shows who he is and his feelings for Mike. I think that was a very strong scene, and that leads into a conversation with Jonathan, because Jonathan's kind of seen everything going in the background, the rearview mirror. That scene alone makes him in the A category here. Will is still trying to find his place with everything after gone missing in the first season, and then kind of trying to bring himself back in the second season. They did a lot with him further on, but here he's just kind of growing up, learning things about himself, and he's struggling with different things. Next up, we got 11. 11 had a lot of backstory to kind of show her struggles. If you didn't have that backstory, it kind of would have been a little bit repetitive when you kind of look at her story. But now dealing a lot more with Papa and Henry and the Rainbow Room and everything, and how people kind of were mean to her in the Rainbow Room, that just added a lot to this character. And she still, out of all these characters, is struggling to find who she really is. and being thrown back into the rainbow room with Papa just adds a lot of development to this character, and still in this amazing character. She's very strong. She's understanding her powers, and then that backstory with her and her mother and Henry and everybody else in the rainbow room, Papa too, just adds a lot. So a lot of great development for 11 in here to make her one of the best characters in Stranger Things. Next up, we got Vecna. Vecna was very terrifying, and I think they did some amazing things with him between Henry and Vecna here in that transition. And you felt like he was a threat. I love that they actually had a villain that could talk and had a backstory. And when you look at the Demogorgons, they were just kind of there. They were menacing, terrifying in their own way. But Vecna was on a whole nother level. I think he was a great villain and truly menacing, and killed a few people, and was a large threat. And I think that they will continue that storyline in season 5, and if they continue it and only build on that, I think in season 5 we'll have him up here. But right now, he's a great villain. And last, we have Max. We're going to put Max way up here to the top. These are the 4 best characters. Max had so many emotional sequences that was seen, I think, in episode 4, where she was with Vecna and they played that hugely popular song on TikTok, Running Up the Hill. It was probably one of the best sequences in Stranger Things. Then also towards the end with episode 9, and then what they were doing with her and how she's dealing with how she's handling the emotions of losing her brother and how she wanted Billy gone, and just kind of how she's handling all of that. She seemed very closed off, quiet for a lot of it, but she's handling things on her own, and she has these emotions. She doesn't know what to do. She's struggling with Lucas, but they did so much with her to just kind of understand the trauma that she's going through. And so Max was an amazing character in here. Very confident, but struggled to open up. And then eventually when she did, they did a lot with this character to add to that development and what she did and what happened to her in season 3. So continuing from season 3 to season 4, they did a lot with her and brought some of those emotions forth and how she's handling them and how people can kind of help her out too. So there we have it, all characters in this Stranger Things season 4. I think Eddie is my favorite character, followed by Max, and then Hopper, and then 11. These are my 4 main characters. These are great characters. These are good characters. These are okay characters. And these are bad characters. So let me know in the comment section down below, who is your favorite character in season 4? And I'm excited to do this one more time in season 5. Probably be in a couple years, so we'll see how things change. Some new characters along the way, and unfortunately Eddie won't be in season 5, but I'm sure a lot of these characters will be again in season 5. We'll get some new ones along the way. Maybe we'll get more of Vicky in season 5, or maybe more of Karen and the teacher here, and some other characters along the way, maybe Arglye. So I'm excited to see season 5. It's going to be a couple years, so let me know in the comment section down below who's your favorite character and who's your least favorite character in season 4. My name is Justin Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.